Knowledge has a beginning but no end. Good evening to one and all gathered here. I, Manasa, deem it as my esteemed privilege to welcome you all to this 80th talk of Intersociety weekly webinar series, jointly organized by IEEE Kerala section, the Institute of Engineers, Kerala State Central Computer Society of India, Trivandrum Chapter Project Management Institute, Kerala Chapter Internet Society, Trivandrum Chapter Vakkom Moulavi Foundation Trust, Trivandrum Life Member Affinity Group, IEEE Kerala Session, IEEE Engineering in Medicine, and Biology Society, Kerala Chapter, the Institute of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering. Once again, a hearty welcome to the 80th talk of Intersociety weekly webinar series, IWWS. We have successfully completed 79 talks with boundless speaker, and the response we have been receiving is enormous. Now, catch up today's talk. Today on our 80th talk, we are extremely delighted to have with us Mr. Philip John, Managing Director of CETRONICS Technologies Pvt Ltd Trivandrum, sharing his perception on technological progress, a boon or bane for human source. Before we begin, participants are kindly requested to put their names to login which you have used while registering. Also, I would like to kindly bring your attention to the feedback links that will be provided during the session. Kindly fill the form and let us know your opinion, and please don't hesitate to mention if there is any requirement for the certificate of attendance. You may kindly raise your queries regarding to the session in chat box. This will be read out at the end of the session. Now moving on to the session formally, I invite Rosmi, IEEE EMBS volunteer, to welcome the virtual gathering.
Thank you, Mansa. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I extend a warm welcome to all at the 18th talk of Intersociety weekly webinar series. But very first, let me appreciate each one of the attendees for your interest in exploring the opportunities even during this pandemic situation through Intersociety weekly webinar series. This great venture initiated by Intersociety has been successfully coordinated for the past 79 talks with honored speakers. And today's talk is not an exception. On behalf of all attendees gathered here, with utmost honor and privilege, I welcome renowned senator of the day, Mr. Philip John, Managing Director of CETRONICS Technologies Pvt, to the 18th talk of Intersociety weekly webinar series. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
Much delighted, I welcome the Chair of Intersociety Activity Committee Kerala section, Dr. Harindalal sir, to the event. Welcome you, sir. Next, I would like to welcome all the organization committees and office bearers to this section. Welcome all. With immense pleasure, next I would like to welcome volunteers of today's section, Kobiga, Mansaraku, Hiba Mohammed, to this section. Welcome all. Once again, my cordial welcome to all to the 18th talk of Intersociety weekly webinar series. Also wishing all an insightful and fruitful webinar experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosmi. Now I invite Hiba Mohammed, IEEE EMBS volunteer, to introduce our speaker.
Good evening, every one of you present here. I am overwhelmed for receiving the opportunity of introducing our esteemed speaker of the eve on the behalf of IWWS. Today, on the 80th session of Intersociety weekly webinar series, we have our respected guest speaker, Mr. Philip John, a life senior member of IEEE, who is currently the managing director of a startup electronic product company named CETRONICS Technologies Pvt, based out of Trivandrum. He did his graduation in Electronics and Communication Engineering from College of Engineering Trivandrum in 1976 and MTech from IIT Madras. He started his career at Keltron Research and Development Center. He served as President and Chief Operating Officer of Nest Trivandrum from 1998 till 2000. He, along with a few friends, founded a software company named Iwws Technology Pvt in Technopark, Trivandrum, and he was the CEO from 2000 to 2005. Iwws merged into the Axel Group in 2005, and from 2005 to 2014, he served Axel Group as head of its software division. After retiring from Axel Group, he served as executive director of an engineering college and Hotel Management Institute run by a charitable society in Trivandrum from 2015 to 2019. Philip was also actively involved in professional bodies in Trivandrum. He was vice chairman of IEEE Kerala section in 2004. Prior to that, he served as president of Computer Society chapter of IEEE Kerala section. He was the organizing committee chairman of IEEE National Conference TENCON 2000, Annual Conference KY 2002, and Annual Conference BIOS 2005, all conducted by IEEE Kerala section in Trivandrum. He has more than 43 years of wide-ranging experience in electronics, hardware, computer software, education, entrepreneurship, and management. Today, despite his busy schedule, here he is to conduct a session on whether technological progress is a boon or bane for human society. I once again heartily welcome you, sir. Over to your session.
Thank you, Hiba. So the wait is over. Now let's all synchronize our attention towards our esteemed speaker, Mr. Philip John. Sir, the platform is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Shiba, for the introduction. I hope the screen is visible. Hello.
Yeah, yes, it is visible.
Okay. It's in October, exactly in October 1976, that I graduated from engineering college and joined Keltron and started my professional career. It is actually 45 years since that time, and I have spent 24 years in the previous century and 21 years in the present century. So it's a kind of a time for me also to share with you my experience and my observations on what is happening in the technology field, and whether it is actually, it is always a good time to just look at whether the technology has been really good for us completely the way in which the society wanted it. So let us have, let me share with you my observations and experience. So I will just start off with a small, I'll just start off the screen with a small photograph. Probably the left side should have been a black and white photograph, like depicting the scenario probably 50 years back. Two kids playing on the seashore with the kites on and sharing their joy, happiness, and all that. On the right side, the present day young boy operating his own remote aeroplane or drone kind of thing, almost by himself. Of course, the technology has grown up, technology has improved so much, but then the companionship, camaraderie, I think there is actually something missing. Probably you will also be knowing that, because the present day situation, Facebook and other social media are catching the attention of the people than the physical contacts and the physical camaraderie. So moving on to, I've been able to see technology and be part of it in both the electronics and the computer technology. I started, as I said earlier, in 1976, when Keltron had started in 1973, and we had a good, Keltron had, under the visionary leadership of Mr. Nambiar, had a good R&D, research and development setup, and I joined the digital electronics group, dealing with digital small-scale integrated digital circuits and transistors and all that. So that was really interesting. It was a great time for me to get shaped up for my future career. So in the 70s, got an introduction to microprocessors and microcontrollers when they started coming. Intel, Motorola, etc. started coming, and Keltron favored the Motorola processors. And I still remember working with Motorola 6800, 6809 in their own machine language format. So in fact, the advent of personal computers and chain developments in semiconductor storage, the memory capacity and all that really helped to have the technology approachable or usable by the common man. In fact, most of you would have heard the the Moore's law, or the given by or suggested by Dr. Moore, who was the co-founder of Intel, and he said that he formulated this principle in 1965, and he said that every 2 years a semiconductor wafer will be able to hold double the capacity of devices, of transistors, and as the years went by, this almost till 2020, this is actually still true, except for the physical dimensions restricting the operation of the transistor. It is actually probably, they say that when the 7 nanometer width of the transistor happens, it may be difficult, physically not possible to improve the density, increase the density further. But definitely the cost also, he had also predicted that cost also will become almost half. And so that shows what has happened in computing field. And in late 1990s, the internet and World Wide Web came into practice. I still remember the way in which this has influenced, in my experience, how much influence this has been. Earlier, we had the only resource of getting the IEEE journals or other advanced material from the library provided by Keltron in Velayambalam. So if you see the late 1990s, it was not, I went for a project as part of NEST in Japan, and there I could use the internet and World Wide Web for gathering a lot of information regarding the field of project work that we were doing there. In fact, I will also share one of my experience where when I told the librarian in 1995 in ER&DC and tried to get a book on one excellent book on HR, human resource management, called Peopleware, by 2 IBMers. And then I wanted to got a good review, and I wanted to get a copy of that. We tried our level best and we couldn't get it. But once I went to Nest, and then internet was available, I searched for the book and I got it, and it hardly took the travel time or the postal delay for that book for me to get. And that is actually the way in which I myself have been able to experience the transformation that we could go through. And the last sentence point that I would like to say, availability of computing power at affordable rates that opened up all of the domains to be explored and improved upon by people. In fact, all the other fields, if you really see the imaging, the medical diagnosis, sorry, the astronomical observations, our study of other galaxies. In fact, when I was a student, I did not even know that, I mean, of course, the nearest galaxy that we came across was only Andromeda galaxy, apart from our Milky Way, and that was the nearest galaxy, and we didn't know much further. But now we know that it is billions and billions of galaxies themselves existing, and we have the science of by using these computers and simulations and their computing capacity, we have been able to understand the outer space much better. If you really there are thousands of cases, and if you really look at some of the glamorous aspects of the current technology, of course, the artificial intelligence and robotics are really at the forefront. Of course, the present, the IEEE's magazine of this October issue, IEEE Spectrum October issue, is where I'm very fortunate to have that as with me. That indicates, or that describes the artificial intelligence, the growth that has been there, and the pitfalls, or where we expected artificial intelligence, and to what extent it could fulfill that earlier dreams. In fact, as many of you may know, it was Marvin Minsky who coined the term artificial intelligence, and it was in 1950s And he definitely, world had to wait for quite a long time because the necessary computing power was not available at that point of time. And in 80s, again, there was a surge. And at that time, it was more of using expert systems and to some extent artificial neural networks. So even then, that progress was not significant. The second wave was also not that significant. But I was fortunate at that time to be part of that activity. Keltron, so R&D had a group started by Dr. Bane, and we were a small team, and we could work on some expert systems at that point of time. And of course, we could not do much further, but it was actually a great eye opener for me, and that was a great learning experience for me. In fact, if you really look at that, now it's actually machine learning and deep learning, where you have multiple layers of the neural networks helping you to arrive, or helping the computer to arrive at better decisions that closely resemble to what a human being can take. But then again, we can call it not as a strong AI, but a weak AI, because it's mostly on pattern matching and similar kind of things, where the decisions made will not be that dramatic. But because it cannot be said that it cannot be said that it is actually deterministic all the time. It may randomly come up with errors which might affect the endpoint. So in fact, that is the reason why I will definitely strongly advise people who have access to IEEE Spectrum to go through the magazine, which will give you in detail what is happening, or what is the latest developments in AI. And robotics, of course, it has, even though it has been projected, or that means there was a lot of predictions and expectations of robotics, but it has not really risen to that level of human capability or mimicking human capability. But still, there are wonderful developments happening all over the world to help humanity. And of course, big data and data science. I'm not expert in that, but then that is the data science and big data are actually the tools that people use again as for our AI-based decisions and making patterns, or generating patterns which are useful to humanity. It is it's also a great opportunity for people to work on. And miniaturization in electronics fabrication, I briefly touched upon that, and it has been wonderful the way in which miniaturization has happened. And once the physical limitation, as I said earlier, is broken, probably people will go to some other technologies like quantum computing, where they say that it's not really practically, it does not have much happened much on a practical scale, because it is still very costly to have a quantum computer, to keeping it at a very, very low temperature. It is close to minus 0 degree Kelvin. And so it is actually not a practical implementation, but sure, we will break the barriers, or the scientists or researchers will break the barriers, and quantum computing also will happen once the limitations. So the computing power is tremendously going to be with us furthermore too. And then of course it is used nowadays. We see there is a lot of interest in autonomous vehicles and electric vehicles, and so by improving the transportation, again, the transportation also has not really risen to the expected level, because 20 years back people are predicting that there will be flying cars in another 10 years and all that. It has not really come to that stage, but still there is a tremendous development in that area as well, but largely due to the previous developments mentioned. Space exploration and allied technology, people who are reading the newspapers will definitely be aware of what is happening, especially in US, how the private companies also are trying to send people to the outside space, and then which was not imaginable a few years back. And another field that has really been able to be developed further was genomics and allied developments. As a byproduct of that, we could, or people could, scientists could develop DNA storage, where the DNA can store much more information than the semiconductor memory or similar type of memory. So people are trying to use, and I really found out one particular application. This is in the innovation, they call it Microsoft's innovation room. If you get a chance, please go through that in more detail. I'll just take a brief glimpse of a video of a DNA storage that is so.
We are producing a lot more data than solution.
And one of the reasons that we're using DNA is its density is orders of magnitude higher than anything that exists today. Its reliability and resiliency, and then it has relevancy. We think that as long as there are humans alive, we'll care about reading our own DNA. And that means that we'll
process from bits to molecules and back to bits.
The writing process takes your data file and encodes those ones and zeros into ACs, Ts, and Gs. Those ACs, Ts, and Gs are actually what gets sent to the device itself. Every base that flows into the column incorporates itself onto a strand of DNA. So once all the DNA bases have been incorporated into the strands on the column, the strands need to be removed from the column. So we pump a chemical mixture into the column, which frees them from their solid support and pushes them into a liquid storage bottle. So once we decide to read the data off the DNA, the read master mix is applied to the DNA storage pool. That master mix prepares the DNA to be read. Now that the DNA is readable, it gets pumped into the read device, where it gets translated into ACs, Ts, and Gs sequences that the computer can understand. Those sequences then get decoded back into ones and zeros. Moving into the future, what we'd like to do is move fluids around in a more intelligent way, which is accomplished by the purple drop.
Water to those locations.
Components. So you use molecules for what you're good at, use electronics for what you're good at, and then you integrate them and show that it's actually possible to build a system that has dry electronics, wet molecules, and they together do something amazing.
Microsoft has seen this impending.
So that was a brief thing about the DNA storage, and that the DNA is much more compact, and it can store many times larger data than we can ever imagine now. So other technologies are also there, which I am not going to touch upon, like the 3D printing and the nanotechnology, etc., which has got a branch, which has got usage in some special domains. And the technology has improved our lives. Our watchword, as far as IEEE is concerned, advancing technology for humanity. And it has really happened. If you really look at the past 50 years, improved in telecommunication. Improvement in telecommunication is so huge that the youngsters in this group will definitely not able to comprehend, but the people like us who are with gray hair will definitely be able to tell. Again, back to my own experience, I remember one incident in which I had to go to Durgapur in 1981 or 82, and as part of my project work in Keltron, there was an order, and we had to implement that, and we've been there. I wanted to connect to the head office, and I had to wait for 2 hours in a queue to get connected to a trunk line to College of Trivandrum back in 1982. So we can now connect to anywhere in the world with video, audio, and all that, and that is really, really, really remarkable. And access to knowledge, of course, wherever the knowledge we need, whatever we need to know, it is always accessible to us through the Google search engine and all that. Easiness in shopping, we definitely are experiencing that in this COVID time, sitting at our own homes, all of us. And automated manufacturing is also improvements have taken place through robotics and other mechanisms. Software has really been at the forefront of the support mechanisms to make that automated manufacturing possible. And improvements in transportation I briefly mentioned, and the electric vehicles, electric cars, how the batteries are being developed, and all that is really another domain. Space exploration also we are touched upon, and medical diagnosis, in fact, including robotics, diagnosis of cancer and other diseases which were not possible earlier, and the cure of these things have really been marvelous. So so let us take a side step and look at technology, because I was actually associated with the running a company or understanding about the working of companies and all that. And when when the technology, something new is happening, either through available knowledge, it could be put as a product or a service. Like, for example, you take Apple. Apple came up with many products, many pioneering innovative products, and what they do is actually they do it as a product or a service like Microsoft does, and then put into, so it has to be productionized. So the ideation comes after research and development. There is a lot of development happening, and then the funding happens, or somebody is interested in this and then comes with funding, and that is the guy who will definitely look for profit. And then of course marketing is involved. Only if we market the product or service, it will be having demand, and marketing is really important. So then the other things come as leadership, quality, and the people are the most important in any aspect of technology. Then the society, the interaction with society, like customer interactions or governmental bodies interaction and all that. So this is probably a nutshell of how a company would look like, or a technology promotion or a service promotion unit will look like. And then it has, the previous economics has really changed now because of the, even earlier it used to be companies generate their own profit through their own operations. Now we find that because of this funding and the venture capital funding and other things, and the stock market involvement, share market involvement, the valuation of the company goes very high, and a loss-making company can be valued at very, very high price. And in fact, the normal economics really does not work. Even economic principles have changed depending on this. So this is where I just wanted to take your attention, the funding part of it, where people really would, once they taste money, they would like to take get more money. In fact, so the next slide is something that I would. So you know that the wealth of the entire world is, if you look at two circles, population and wealth, population around less than 10%, maybe 5% of the people enjoy 90 to 95% of wealth. So that is a big mismatch. And those people use technology as a lever. Technology is a lever. Like, for example, you take Apple CEO, when he was one of the richest persons in the world, Microsoft, Bill Gates, all technology people. Now you see that the technology people are becoming billionaires, and overnight, or I mean, at least over a short period of time. So what has happened is actually the technology lever people use to generate wealth, and sometimes it is countries feel that they are richer if they can produce more billionaires. I really beg to differ in that aspect, but still that is what is the world going to be now. In a global context, we engineers as enablers and implementers of technology are foot soldiers or individual wealth creators who take protection of patent mechanism or treaties. I would like to, because sometimes this said statement may be debatable. Individual wealth creators or individual means maybe one person or a small group of persons. They are, they take protection of patent mechanism or treaties and make sure that the wealth that is created is their own wealth, or majority of it goes to them. So even though I mentioned this foot soldiers, in fact, we are just engineers, most of us are just implementers of their wishes. So that's only a statement, an observation that I'm doing. It could be people may have different opinions about that, but that is one statement that I wanted to put across. This can be detrimental to society and the world we live in the long run. As Gandhiji said, the world has enough for everyone's needs, but not everyone's greed. So greed of the individual wealth creators propel them to project only the positive side of their product or service, mostly hiding the negative effects. So that is also one aspect which probably you may have to look at, or just sitting back and relax. You may have to just feel for it. And as far as nature is concerned, nature's progress versus man-made progress, I have made some few points here also, which nature is time-tested and slow. Man-made is hasty, make everything faster. I want to reach, normally, if we take a trip from India to England, maybe from Madras or Delhi, or so, it may take 10 hours. Somebody may come up in 2 years' time saying that I'll take you in half an hour's time from here to, but then is it really worth it? Is it really worth all the trouble by making so much extra payment? Is it really worth to be there? I mean, it's debatable. And nature is always true, but we feel that many of the man-made system is half-baked truth. Probably this is also debatable, but the thing is that, like, for example, you may say that mRNA vaccine is actually the best that is, but then after 20 years or 10 years down the line, you may find that the mRNA or those type of vaccines may not be so good for health, for the health, some other aspect of the health of the individual. Anyhow, I was only trying to just take an example, but it could be, there could be other things also like that. Then there is also always in nature, there is a balance mechanism built in. If we do man-made, of course, we cannot afford to have that balance mechanism always. So sometimes it could be trial and error. And reward is collective to species and enable sustenance. Like, for example, when you take the COVID virus, so the reward is collective. You catch control of human beings and then multiply. So that knowledge is shared through their genes to the all in the species, and then enable sustenance of them. Rewards tend to be individualistic. Take the case when somebody has discovered a vaccine, it is actually for that company to make profit. So rewards tend to be individualistic. Handling of knowledge is cute in nature. Cute. It's like the DNA we just saw. What is it? It can store tremendous information, and DNA is actually, handling of knowledge is cute, and DNA and brain cells are classic examples. And handling of knowledge is clumsy. In fact, it is in cloud storage and search engines that we handle the knowledge. Anyhow, this is for man-made system. So my observations to just take on, technology should be used for the benefit of the entire mankind than the present way of profiteering mindset for a privileged group. The world is driven by a materialistic view guided by the Western philosophy, where individual is at the center of the universe. It tends to be more analytical, breaking the whole into minutest parts. The whole research and technology aids that. So the analytical mindset compared to the Eastern philosophy's holistic approach to life has gone to the backbench. The power of the human mind is ignored, resulting in more misery to humanity. This is only my observation. Again, there could be different views on this, but I will tell you another example from my own observation. I remember, many of you may remember that in exactly 10 years now since Steve Jobs left us. So in fact, everybody knew that he was actually, I mean, his death was widely known. But another person also died. It was Dennis Ritchie, who invented the C language, and then he was responsible for, along with Ken Thompson, he was responsible for developing the Unix operating system. And Unix is at the heart of most of the things, like Unix and the derived Linux and Android, all that. There are so many things that is derived from that. And as a human being, he was not, that the technology contribution of that person is actually pretty much compared to the contribution by Steve Jobs. Of course, that is where the marketing and this thing gets much more limelight than the actual contribution, I feel. So there has to be a, coming back to our presentation, there has to be a balance between these two to make a resilient and happy society. And in fact, on these lines of thinking, I could just get a quotation from Albert Einstein, where he really wanted to just have a new type of thinking if mankind is to survive and move toward higher levels. So my conclusion is, technology without humanity is calamity, and our motto should be our Eastern philosophy, our own Indian philosophy of Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. So I think our technology. So I will, like I started in the beginning. In fact, this is just another photo of a festival or festivity being organized, and the young boy in the picture would have grown 55, and he is just happily enjoying the fireworks, and then in the night, which is very, very enjoyable to all of us. And at the end of the day, when the next dawn comes, when the next sunrise comes, people will see all debris of these things scattered around, and it has to cleaned by somebody. Probably some social oriented societies may just clean that. Voluntary organizations may clean it, and the pollution that it has created is left for nature to claim. So just remove the fireworks and then put technology. We should not be feeling the same. We should not be feeling the same. It should not be, the garbage should not be left to the other members of the society to clean, or the impact should not be left to the nature to correct. So with that, I would like to conclude and thank you. My presentation is over. I would like to welcome questions. Thank you.
Hello?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Hello, Manasa? Manasa?
Yes, sir.
Please take over.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for the wonderful session, sir. It was great listening to you. Sir, we have received some queries regarding to the session. Others may kindly put your queries in the chat box. It will be very kind of you, sir, if you respond to the doubts. Shall I read it out for you, sir?
You may, but I will also go through that, and if you can read out, it will be easy for me, so that we
Manasa,
be on the same
please,
page.
if there are any questions, please read it out. Manasa, please.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Srijit SD.
Shall I read it out?
Please, you may read it out, Manasa.
Sir, they are asking to show the slide funding just before worldview during the They are asking the slide.
Yeah. Yes. This is the one. This is the one.
Hello, sir.
The slide is not seen.
Sorry. Okay, 1 minute. I have to. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
There's no more questions, I think. Thank you so much, sir. That was a great interactive session. Now I invite Hiba Mohammed, IEEE EMBS volunteer, to deliver.
There is one question, but by Dr. Enel Panikar.
Yeah.
Do you have a plan of action to ensure the technology remains a boom? Do you have a plan of action to ensure that technology remains a boon?
I am too small an individual to just to say that I have a plan. No, it is not there. I just wanted even that is why I put the quote from Albert Einstein. Our thinking should be in such a way that the technology whatever we develop is not for our individual benefit alone, but for the entire society without any problem or concern to the other people. Our concern should be the sharing and caring of others. So that is where the technology also should be used in that sense. Many times we are not really looking at the long-term effects of these in our society or effects to other people. Only the profit and the generation of wealth for us or the individuals who create that activity. That is where the problem comes. If we have a global sense, I feel that which we can develop in our own through our education criteria or education or something like that, we can be global citizens who are caring and caring for others. So that is only my suggestion. I cannot. I'm too small for sir for any providing any solution.
Okay, Manasa, you may take over.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. That was a really great interactive session. Now I invite Hiba Mohammed, IEEE EMBS volunteer, to deliver a vote of thanks.
I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. A pleasant evening to one and all again. I'm most privileged for having the opportunity to propose a vote of thanks and acknowledge the hard work of every dignitaries and volunteers with which this Intersociety weekly webinar series has now successfully completed its 80th session. Firstly, on behalf of IWWS, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to our honorable chief guest, Mr. Philip John, for giving us such a great session despite his busy schedule. Sir, your session has encouraged and enlightened our thoughts, and we can't thank you enough for giving us this fortuity. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
As a token of honor, we would love to give you a virtual memento. Please do accept it, sir.
Yes, thank you. I accept it.
Now, a special mention to Harindra sir, who is the chairperson of IWWS. Thank you, sir, for being a backbone. We have now summoned up to 80th session with a lot of effort and hard work from your side. Thanks to all volunteers and other dignitaries with their contribution of important roles that has resulted in smooth conduction of this session. Special thanks to Gopika, who was a Zoom facilitator, Roshni for her welcoming speech, and Manasa for being a great host. And finally, yet importantly, thanks to all the participants who joined out here. Thank you for your kind cooperation and presence.
Thank you, Hiba. As we have come to the end of the session successfully, I would like to announce the next session in our Intersociety weekly webinar series that is on Wednesday 27th October 2021. We will have our 81th talk session from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Attendees kindly take a note on that and register for the session. Hope to see you all on next Wednesday. On behalf of IWWS team, thank you from the bottom of our heart for joining with us today on the 18th talk. Goodbye, and this is Mansa signing off. And the meeting is officially closed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip John.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
For a great presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, you have done a great job. Congratulations, and
thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, you have given us a very good presentation, and I have to thank you for that special presentation, starting from the history of the modern developments and coming to recent stages and indicating what are the problems, and come back to the Occidental philosophy. Okay,
sir.
Thank you very much.
May I ask a question? Since the meeting
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
We have a few minutes. I think.
Yeah, sure.
I think you made an extremely good presentation. What we have to do is to elaborate a little more on what we can do to ensure, because we are in charge of technology. We have a responsibility. If there is something going wrong with it, we have the responsibility for it. So what can we do? That's the question we have to ask in every aspect of it. How it is not misused, how it is not used for centralized control, how it is not used as an affliction. All these things we have to find ways then and there. We cannot wait for somebody else to come up with a solution. And we cannot just throw a question and keep it open. We have to come up with some discussion has to come out of our meeting as to what are the possibilities. You said Loga Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu and consideration for others and all those things. That's great. But how can we ensure that it remains like that? What is our role in it?
See, sir, my observation, as I said earlier, is primary objective people tend to make is profit making or profit generation. So the secondary, see, that is where the analytical approach and the holistic approach or the synthetic approach differs. The Western philosophy or Western philosophy of approach to things and the practice of dissecting the whole thing into small, tiny items, going to the bottom of it through that observation. I'm not trying to say that it is bad. It is really good. But then if you take the view of Ayurveda and the allopathic medicine, I'm not glorifying, because Ayurveda is there. It has got a lot of potential, but it may not have really come to the stage where we are now. I don't know. I am not a doctor. I cannot say with conviction, but still, Ayurveda is a practice where people are, we are looking at the health of the individual from the holistic view. How it wants to make us healthy. Whereas in allopathy or Western medicine, it's all kind of like, for example, I have a problem with my hand. They will definitely look at only my hand or what it is happening to the entire body or entire system. Because of that, it's not of their concern. So whatever they do for the hand, it may cure my hand, but it may create another problem in my body. So that is where the holistic approach, including the mind, we are not taking into account. So resulting in problems which could arise later on, maybe 10 years down the line or 20 years down the line, or that is what is happening. So the profit motive is too high. Maybe they qualify it by saying that for this research we have spent so much of budget, so much of amount we have spent, and that is the reason why we have to. So then we have to just get it patented, and the patent has to bring us results and all that, or it will the funding will help us to do much better. So always it is a kind of a money oriented or the wealth oriented system or approach from the it is actually across the world now. If you really look at it, the Eastern philosophies, or even I don't know about African this thing, but then Eastern philosophies which are more peaceful, they've been all crushed by the Western philosophy, Western approach. If I may mention, there is actually the French philosopher Descartes. He said, "I think, therefore I am." So I is very, very predominant in the Western or European philosophy. Whereas in our case, it is actually Aham Brahmasmi Tattvamasi. So the approach, the total approach is totally different as far as, even I was told by somebody that even Professor J.C. Bose, he did not want to patent his invention. Only when somebody forced him to do that, he was ready to patent this thing. So the approach of our mindset, or the Eastern mindset, is to be what you call it, to be helpful to others, or the entire benefit of the society. So but the other European thinking is different. That's what I feel, and that has created a problem to my I'm not a philosopher. It's only my experience and observation, sir. Please pardon me if I am wrong.
Well, that's a very good analysis. The question here is the money orientation is the cause.
Yeah.
So that wealth production, that is really part of development. But the problem here is that the focus on the money is really getting too much out of hand. So there has to be some kind of a moderation, at least.
Yeah.
That how can we technologists do something about it? That's the question.
Sir, it is actually, yeah, we have to debate. We have to think more outside, even outside this forum. Probably we have to discuss and debate.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Panikir sir and Philip John. Okay.
Namaskaram,
Okay.
sir. Thanks again for arranging all these things. Thank you very much.
Okay. Gobiya, please close the session. Thank you very much once again. See you next week for another great presentation by Rajesh Shankar Iyer on another interesting topic. Okay, Gobiya, you may close it.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.